Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone today? Good. Good. I'm not doing so bad. I had a tough week this week. Yeah, some bad news from back home. I should say my former home, because this is home. But you know, the Golden State Warriors. It's just so rough for me. It's been so rough. So please be patient with me as I try to get through today's message. Just so many close calls, and you know, I prayed and prayed. I just want to let you know my faith is not shaken. I still believe that God answers prayer. I might just have to wait for it though. These past few weeks we've been dealing with this topic that Adrian has been teaching us on, which is the idea of coming as we are. Coming as we are. He started with the idea, the invitation that Jesus brings that says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." An invitation and a promise to all those who are weary, burdened, stressed, overburdened, hurt, worked, folks like us in the Western world who can't stop doing and are addicted to performance. This invitation says that Jesus says, "I am humble and I am meek, and my burden is light, and therefore you can find rest for your souls just by being with me." Adrian then went on and moved and gave us a story that helped us display what this actually means, what this looks like. And there we are into the house of Mary and Martha. And there at the house of Mary and Martha, we find Mary sitting at the feet of Jesus. A place where she shouldn't be. She shouldn't be there. She shouldn't exist there. But again, the idea of come as you are. She comes at the feet of Jesus. And Martha, of course, is working hard, anxious, stressed out in the kitchen, trying to make sure everything looks great for her guests, trying to make sure things look good at her home. The anxiety and the stress of what will they say? Will they like my food? Will it be good enough? Will anyone have allergies? Did I check on this? Did I check on that? Did someone clean the bathroom last night? Did this happen? Do I have enough tissue paper? Do I have this? Do I have that? The anxiety of all it takes when we open up our homes and become vulnerable to onlookers. She's dealing with that stress in the kitchen, and she recognizes that her sister is unstressed, unburdened, not preoccupied by the thoughts that run through her mind. And she goes, "Oh, what is going on here? Why are you not worried?" In our family, I'm the worrier. My wife is more of a Sabbather. She relaxes and enjoys, and I'm going, "How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? How are we going to do this?" I remember the idea of coming to Australia. I'm like, what's good? And she's like, "Well, God told me." I'm like, "I know, but how? How are we going to take care of this? How is this going to happen? What's going to happen to this? What's going to happen to that? We're going to be so far away from family. What is this? What is that?" And she would just, "This is what God said." I'm going, "You're not worried?" And I come to figure out, it wasn't that she wasn't worried, she just handled it better. But Mary is handling it in a way that Martha doesn't like, as Adrian showed us. And so she goes to Jesus, and she passes the ball to Jesus. She gives him an assist, and she expects now. She expects that Jesus is going to make the shot. Because it's not Mary's right to sit at his feet. And so she goes, "This man who's wise and has wisdom and knows how to do things, and knows how to say the right things. If I try to talk to my sister, it might not work. But Jesus, he's going to do the right thing." And of course, Adrian told us that she was sorely disappointed, much like true basketball fans were this week. Those of us who believe in the NBA, the National Basketball Association, not the North American Basketball Association. True believers were disappointed that it came from the North. We passed the ball to Steph Curry, and we expect this man who knows how to shoot from the three-point line will certainly make it. But he misses. And my heart, along with all the true believers, are very disappointed. And Martha, too, was disappointed at Jesus' answer. But Jesus told her, look, there's only one thing that's actually necessary. And Mary has chosen the better way of doing things. Jesus invites Martha and the rest of us to realize that we are better by being and not by doing. That we become better by being with and not doing for. That it is in our spending time with that we become transformed, not our spending energy for. And from the very beginning, God was trying to help us understand that we are human beings and not human doings. But we live in a society that rewards those who do. I don't know about you, but I often deal with this idea of performance and production and getting to do, achieving more, trying to get this done, trying to get that done, trying to accomplish more. I used to be proud of the fact that I had back-to-back meetings from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and that I was on this board and this committee and that I had to do this and do that, and that my days were so packed that I barely got home. I used to be so excited to say, I am not a lazy pastor. I work hard. Being surrounded by a church that was full of corporate executives and those who traveled in on Monday and then left by Friday and was in this country and that country. I was surrounded by people who had so much to do, and I had to prove that although I don't get paid as much as you do, I work hard too. My job is just as important. But I realized, and even more so when I moved to Australia, that all my doing didn't accomplish much. We live in a toxic world that says that we have to do more in order to become more. We are intoxicated by performance. We want to accomplish. We live in a world where there's a 24-hour cycle. At any point, at any time, you're connected with people who are doing. Across the globe, things are happening on your social media page. So-and-so just got 2 kids and you only have 1. The other person is married already. Weren't you the one that was supposed to be married first? So-and-so got a house now. And all of their accomplishments are posted. None of their mistakes. None of their struggles. But we are enthralled by being first, by being next, by being the one out of duty, out of desire, out of enjoyment, out of reward. We want to do. We want to accomplish. We want to get the job done. We don't want to be the ones that are lazy. We're intoxicated by this idea of getting the report done, getting the project done, getting this task done. And now our society is training our children to do the same. You must pass this test and this exam and that and this and you have to do this accomplishment. You have to be part of this club. You have to be part of this. You have to be going there. You got to. Because only then do you achieve and accomplish. But even society today is recognizing that all of our doing is not accomplishing much. We are the most overworked society in human history, and yet we accomplish the least. Harvard Business Review just produced an article and research that shows that the more work that is being done, the more hours we're clocking in, is actually doing worse for our health, worse for our companies, and worse for our society. That people are not actually accomplishing more by being at work more, by logging on more hours, that they studied people who worked harder and those who just worked just enough. And there was no difference between the results that occurred. In Finland, a research was just done in Finland, and then they discovered that even those people who say they enjoy what they do don't do much. They found that the people who did more and worked more and enjoyed what they do, because they lacked perspective, spent more time on things that actually didn't matter for the company than on things that did. Because there wasn't enough time to rest and pause and relax and look at the bigger picture, they did a lot of the details, but weren't able to see the bigger picture. Studies show that this lifestyle brings us diabetes, insomnia, unable to see life in the right way, cut short our life system. It just keeps hurting us, hurting our culture, hurting our society. People are angrier, people are harsher, people are less able to connect with people, less able to relate, because we live in an overworked, overburdened, overstressed society. And we know this. I'm not saying anything new to you, but we keep doing it anyway. We are intoxicated because the perfect recipe has been created. Economic incentive mixed with organizational hierarchy, positional leadership, mixed with deep-seated psychological needs, and constantly surrounded by those who are accomplishing more through social media. We gain more followers, more friends, and less connection. The perfect recipe for burnout. And part of the difficulty is that we believe that this is a better way of living. And you would think, now let me bring it home. You would think, for those of us who aren't part of this tradition, you could close your ears, but for those of us who grew up in this Adventist thing, it's even worse for us. Because we take the antidote, the antidote to this restlessness, this Sabbath rest, and we make it another day of work. We do for God on this day. From Sabbath school to Sabbath afternoon. We work, another way of intoxicating ourselves with the desire to do more. And for us, because it is godly, then we think, okay, this is good, we're doing good. And so here's another way of feeling good about ourselves, of feeling important, and of having control. And let's not talk about nominating committee time. Will they give me the position again? Will I keep what I've always had? How dare they not ask me? See, I can't preach too hard because I have to be the pastor next week. If this wasn't my church, I'd preach a different sermon because I get to walk away. But since I love you, I'll stop the preaching right there. But we find relevance in what we do. Yet we were created to find relevance in who we're with. Genesis chapter 2, let's get into the word. In Genesis chapter 2, we find God right at the beginning of creation. Right at the beginning, God has created the world around us, and now humanity is there. 6 days have gone by. He's created light. He's separated light from darkness, water from the sky. He's thrown vegetation on the ground. He's put beasts and creeping, crawling things all around the earth. And now he's made the planets and the stars to tell times and seasons and days. He's called the sun to govern the day and the moon to govern the night. He's separated things that used to be to things that are. He called light from somewhere unknown and brought it to somewhere present. And then his crowning creation, or what we believe is his crowning creation, humanity itself. God looking in the mirror and creating out of his own image, Adam, Eve. And he tells them, be fruitful. The first command humanity receives is to be fruitful and multiply, increase in number, and have dominion over the earth. And right after that proclamation, this being fruitful, we get Genesis 2. He looks at everything. He says, oh, it's good. In verse 1, thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. The seventh day God had finished the work. Verse 2, by the seventh day God had finished the work. Verse 2, by the seventh day God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. You know what's interesting in this text? It doesn't say that by the sixth day God had finished his work. That means something was created on the seventh day. Hello? It would seem logical to say that at the end of the sixth day, God was done the creating process, and on the seventh day, he's resting from the work that he had already completed. But work is done for God in resting he is doing. Oh, wow. Yeah. By the seventh day, he had finished everything that he had done. There was no need for a seventh if everything was done on the sixth. Because why is there not an eighth? You see, something was missing from the universe on day 7. On day 6, everything that needed to move and act in space was created. But time needed to be blessed on the 7th day. Okay. Let me help you. In Genesis chapter 1, the first thing God creates is actually time. I know. The time that you and I understand, the chronological time that you and I know, God exists in a different type of time, but the time that you and I understand is created on the first day. He separates light from darkness, and then he says there is evening and there is morning. He creates the cycle of days. On the very first day, he gives rhythm of rest and work. The very first day. And on the 7th day, he separates and holifies a specific time for rest. You and I look at that word rest and go, wow, rest. The Hebrew word manuha that it comes from is actually meaning something way more than just rest from work. Abram Joshua Heischer talks about it. Manuha is repose, tranquility, peace, stillness. It's not by accident that the psalmist says in Psalms 46, be still and know that I am God. In other words, the only way to know is by being still. Woo. That the more doing I do, I'm not accomplishing much. I'm not actually achieving more. I'm not actually gaining information by doing. I gain information by reflection, by resting, by being restored, by repose. The universe did not have peace or tranquility until Sabbath day. God grounds his creation with rest. Okay. Let me help you. You are not the finishing act of God. What was created for you is the finishing act of God. Oh, did you hear what I said? We've always thought that humanity is the finishing act that God does, but God says you're so important, I have to create one more thing for you. Rest, which is the final destination of humanity. Eternal rest with God. On the seventh day, God says, I know what's going to happen later. And I know we'll lose touch. And I know things will get messed up. But don't ever forget what I made you for. I made you to rest. You are a human being, not a human doing. He takes out time. He separates himself from his work. And we know it was special. We know that's not something he usually does. Because later, when we meet Jesus, and the Pharisees are asking him, why are you working? What's going on? Why are you still working on the Sabbath day? Jesus says, my Father is always working. That means that day was a special day. Oh, I don't know if you understand. He said, my Father is still working. He's always working. By being who he is, he's constantly creating. He took a pause for you and I that day. Oh, man. He took the day off. He didn't go into work because something more important had occurred. His time with his kids. Oh my gosh, I wish you could grasp what I'm saying. He looked at everything he made and he paused and he stopped. He rested. He called everybody off and he said, now it's time for me and my children. The problem you and I have with this seventh-day Sabbath is because it's the first time in the week we've entered the rhythm of rest and work. But God shows us, God prepares us for Sabbath because it's not the first time God has purposefully paused. See, on day one, he separated the light from the darkness and he says, and he saw that the light was good. By the way, when you read the whole, this is bonus. This is this is just bonus. You'll go read at it, send me some emails later. But when you look at Genesis, God never says that the darkness is good. He says that the light is good. And this is why Sabbath is necessary. Because Sabbath allows you, pausing, resting, allows you to celebrate the progress you've made without looking at what is still unaccomplished. Because it's not until Revelation 21 that he gets rid of the darkness. It's in Revelation 21 we see, and there is no night there because God is its light. But from chapter 1 of Genesis, God said there's a problem with this darkness. And in fact, he enters into the chaos by resting. The very few verses says that the Spirit of God was hovering, resting, abiding over the waters while darkness was over the surface of the deep. There's a big problem in the universe, and God is not troubled. He knows in all time, in everything, all things will work together. He is paused. He is poised. He understands. What I love about the Bible is every time heaven is open, there's chaos on the earth, and God is sitting on the throne. You and I in the midst of chaos, because we're so used to doing. Whenever the crisis hits, we go, what do I need to do? How can I do this? Oh my gosh, I don't know. How am I going to do this? How am I going to, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And in all of our energy of doing, we do the wrong thing and have to fix it later. Hello? But have you ever tried not doing? And then all of a sudden, it gets solved without you? The entire creation is teaching you God doesn't need you to solve your problems. And I think that's why he made you last. Because you would have been really talkative. He made you last because you would have given him, well, maybe we should put the sun this way. God, I don't know about this whole sun thing out there. What if the sun came from the water? That would be really beautiful. It would be constant rainbow coming out of it. That would be really nice. God, I don't know. This is how you and I pray. God, let it be your will, but please do this, and that. But all of creation teaches us that we enter God's finished work. That you and I come in when God is done. So Sabbath on the seventh day is actually practiced throughout the week. God creates one thing, purposefully pauses, reflects on what is done, and says that is good. And it was evening, and it was morning the next day. He comes in, creates one thing, looks at it, sees what's done, pauses, goes at it again. Could God not have just thought all those things into existence in one day? Why do you think he's doing it? He is creating for you and I the rhythm of becoming. The way we are transformed is by intentional work and then purposeful pause. In the pause, I figure out what I need to do tomorrow. I reflect on what needs to get done. But often we are hurried and rushed, trying to accomplish more and getting less done. But I have to be honest, this didn't come from nowhere. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, here is where the problem began. God created us and made us into his image, made us to look like him, made us to be like him, and yet, an enemy comes our way and starts putting in other ideas in our mind. The idea that he's placed in our mind is, although we are made to be like God, we must do something to actually be like God. The devil says to Eve, for God knows. Look at this. Do you see the insinuation, the idea that God is keeping something from you? For God knows that when you eat, once you do this, when you eat from it, your eyes will be open. And you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Did someone not tell Eve that in her being with God, she was already becoming like God? This is the first Martha we see. Martha, run to the kitchen, then you could please. but just by being. In Genesis chapter 3, we recognize later that God had a custom of coming in the cool of the day and walking with them. So he actually expected work to be done. And in the evening, he would walk with Adam and Eve. And that day when Eve messes up and listens to the enemy, that day, God comes back looking for the people he walks with in the evening, because it is through intimacy that they will become transformed. And he asked the question that I think God is still asking today. Where are you? Where are you? And we continue to give the same answer that Adam gave. We were afraid. Afraid to lose face, afraid to look lazy, afraid to look like we're not good enough, afraid to be incompetent, afraid to lose money, afraid to lose our job, afraid to lose our husbands, afraid to lose our children. We're afraid, we're afraid, we're afraid. And out of fear, we do. But God is calling us back. Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. The first day humanity had was the Sabbath day. A day to be with and not do for. To be with God is what brings on transformation. Paul tells us this secret, 2 Corinthians 4, verse 17. It might be 1 Corinthians 4. I keep messing up the media team. They're going to hate me. Somewhere there, 1 Corinthians 4:17, I think says, now the Lord is the Spirit. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Okay, I'm still wrong. And we all, with unveiled faces, contemplate the Lord's glory, are being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. 2 Corinthians 3. There you go. Thank you, Adrian. Is it 2 Corinthians 3, verse 17? Thank you. There you go. You see, I simply was, and God fixed it. God used you, Adrian. Obviously, you're not God. 2 Corinthians 3, verse 17. Now the Lord is the Spirit. And where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. There is what? Freedom. Freedom is the antidote to fear. He calls out to Adam and Eve, where are you? I was afraid. But he says, come to me. Come to me. Because in his presence, there is freedom from fear, freedom from shame, freedom to, it doesn't matter what other people think, because I'm going to fix this for you, Adam. I'm going to fix this for you, Eve. I will send my son, who is our ultimate Sabbath. Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath. I love people who say Sabbath is no longer important. And for some, it's silly, it's this and that. And I go, man, why would Jesus call himself Lord of something that's not essential? He says, I am the Lord of this thing. And Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. It was made not as a day that we don't do, but as a day that we are, that we just be. We're so focused on doing that Sabbath has become, for those of us who are part of this tradition, Sabbath has become the day that we don't do stuff. You're not allowed to do this. You can't do that. You can't do this. But rarely have we been invited to be. To embrace being still, being present, spending time with our family, spending time with God, just connecting.